name of the program, we appreciate all the feedback we've received to the latest in an endless series of memorable Marty Wexler III appearances. I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that we feel very lucky to have the array of guests that we've had. Very few elicit the reaction and interest that Marty Wexler III does. Maybe it's in part because he's only on once a year. And, of course, this is the day. The day before the draft is the best day. Once upon a time, he joined us, I think, Combine time, too, correct?
Yes.
But the last several years, it's been simply this day and no other. We're a little bit late, and we apologize to our next guest, Alec Lewis, joining us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. Alec, of course, covers the Vikings in the National Football League for the Athletic. My countdown, because I'm a big countdown guy, because it's forced on me via ESPN, Alec, is 26 hours and 49 minutes until the draft ensues. The most interesting stat you had that I think sort of crystallizes what, to a certain extent, we already knew, but did it in a way that brought the whole thing home regarding the Vikings' lack of draft success, is a nugget you put together that lays out, in terms of players on the roster, number of players taken in round 1, rounds, and then rounds 2 and 4. And the rounds 2 to 4 stat is stunning. In the case of the Vikings, you note that there are 6 drafted in rounds 2, 3, and 4. In the case of the Eagles, 23. Seahawks, 21. Rams, 15. Packers, 21. We are in single digits, and they're not only in double digits, they're pretty high up in double digits as well. That, at some point, becomes impossible for any ownership group, I would think, to ignore, correct?
Absolutely. And first of all, I mean, it's really tough to follow what I'm following here. So I'm just like, there's a lot of pressure here, and it's also, you're allowing people to wind down. So I don't take that responsibility lightly. But yeah, I was looking at some of these numbers yesterday just out of curiosity, and it kind of like, to your point, it wasn't a surprising thing to uncover the statistics that you just mentioned, but it was definitely clarifying and I think crystallizing of how, stretched thin their roster is and has been and will continue to be if they do not hit with their picks in these middle rounds. When you think about the second, thirds, and fourth rounds of the draft, like that is typically the meat of every single draft where you find good starters to just starting caliber players. And if you're having to replace those, those spots with undrafted free agents and trying to overcome it without scheming everybody all the time, your margin for error is very slim. And so this is really a point, just like all of these drafts are, where to build the next core and sustain success into the future, if you are going to compete while kind of replenishing the roster, you got to start to hit, especially when you have 4 picks in the top 100.
The moral of the story beyond that, to me, when I look at some of the numbers that you examined, is it's going to take several drafts. It's unlikely that you can deal with all the needs and get yourself back up to that place where you're replenishing more via the draft and free agency in 1 year, even with having 4 in the top 100. It has to start, and it has to start right now, and I think Rob Brzezinski understands that as well. But it's going to take 2, 3, several drafts, is it not, to get back to that spot, potentially?
Absolutely. And then you factor in the potential of, okay, if you're not living in the rookie quarterback contract world, your salary cap space is never going to allow you to continuously spend big in free agency like they did the last couple of years. Yeah. That is a risky endeavor in its own right. But if you are paying a premium on a quarterback, which if Kyler Murray becomes the starter and if Kyler Murray has success, it would be really hard to let a guy like that walk out your door. Then you have less wiggle room, and it places more emphasis on nailing the draft picks. And it's really, I mean, it's simple, and it's not, I mean, you can only say it so many times, but if you are not hitting on these picks, like, you just don't have a chance at reaching the level that everyone listening to this show has waited for them to reach for as long as they have. I mean, it's that clear cut. It's that important of fuel for team success.
So and I think, I'm not sure if you've brought this subject up before. I thought it was you, but it might have been someone else. We talked to so many of you Jackals who cover this team, but it's, I think, been written or suggested that perhaps the scouts on this team did not necessarily feel all that listened to, or listened to enough as they thought they should be. So if that premise is true, and you can correct me if I'm oversimplifying that, are we assuming that we're going to go a little bit more traditional in that regard, and that if there was a schism there or a lack of connection, that part of the job that Brzezinski sees as being his, as long as he's got this job, is listening more often to the scouts than perhaps they felt they had been listened to the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I necessarily directly have talked to scouts I haven't directly talked to scouts who have said to me, the work that we do is just overlooked completely. I mean, the scouting information, less so the film evaluation, but more so like the character piece of it, that has always, I think, occupied a pretty hefty role within their evaluations. But there's no question, over the course of the last 4 drafts, there were plenty of instances of, okay, this pick is a high executive seat pick. Okay, this pick is a coaching staff pick. And I think at times the opinion and the bias from some of these parties who ended up, making a lot of these selections outweighed just more of the objectivity that derives from the scouting information. And I wrote this in today's story too, and I really believe it. Like, if you're Rob Brzezinski, and if you are relying as heavily as he is and will be in this draft on the scouts' information, then it puts a premium on that scouting information to be revelatory, to be unquestionable. And I will say this, Mike Charlatan, the director of college scouting, he's been with the team for 22 years. Jamal Stevenson, one of the senior personnel executives, he's been with the team for more than a decade. Pat Roberts, one of the, second rungs from a college scouting perspective, has been with the team for more than 10 years. So these guys, have, I would say, established the knowledge kind of internally for a long time. And if this draft specifically, that knowledge is going to be leaned into, then it is a great opportunity for that group, I would say, to prove that, the work that they do can produce valuable results.
What do we need to know about this draft from a Vikings perspective? Give me some names beyond the safety that we should be, or Vikings fans should be paying attention to, given, as you say, that at least for now, they have the opportunity to select 4 players in the top 100.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this. It's been harder for me this year than the past 3 to nail down, let's just say 2 positions specifically at the top that, they're looking at these 2 positions and this is it. It's just been harder, and I think part of that is because of the amount of needs that they have, and because of the strategy, quote unquote, best player available that they want to take. As far as 18, beyond Dylan Thieneman, the Oregon safety, who I'm still not convinced they would take if he's available there at 18. I think there are a couple things to know. One, there are probably, you talk to a lot of people in the industry, there are 10 to 12 blue chip players in this draft. When you're drafting the first round, you want to land that type of game changing player. So does one of those guys get to Minnesota? And if they do, would they pull the trigger regardless of position? I mean, the names that I've written and said, Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end from Oregon, I know a lot of people have strong feelings about tight end in the first round, given the way this team has invested in offense, but that would allow you to be more versatile offensively. I think he would be a name. And then if it's not him, like I definitely could see a trade down, whether it's to 23, 24, probably. And then you're talking, would defensive tackle become in play? Would there be a defensive player who they love at that spot? Like that's kind of how I'm looking at it from, at the top. And then throughout the middle rounds, if you don't take a pass catcher at 18, you're probably looking at a receiver type of option at 49. And then obviously throughout the draft, they're going to be targeting a safety in the center. So that's kind of the rundown with where we are at right now.
A number of the folks who analyze this stuff continue to insist that this is not a particularly distinguished top-heavy draft, and that's why there might be some movement, not just for the Vikings, but others moving down. I'm always suspicious of these simplifications and maybe oversimplifications because there's a part of me that says if you're a really good talent evaluator, you could well be sitting there going, there's good players. We may think there's different good players or more good players than other people think if you know how to identify the good players. And I feel like some years the drafts get described before they take place as loaded, not so good. And then what we tend to find out every year is there are good people there that weren't necessarily maybe projected as being as good if, you're good at your job and you make good decisions. What do you think about all that?
Yeah, I mean, I do think the narratives that start to build really early on do seem to kind of, cloud the entire process from start to finish. I think part of the reason this draft in particular has been described in that way is because there's just not a quarter besides Fernando Mendoza, who I'm not going to missay like Marty Wexler before me. Besides him, there are not a ton there aren't any quarterbacks who are surefire guys in probably the top 15 picks. There are some fringe guys, Ty Simpson, Carson Beck probably are the two most likely ones, but that definitely clouds, or produces some of the narratives that I think occupy this draft. As far as finding I think you get carried away, or I can, and people can get carried away with there may not be, 25 blue chip all-pro players, but from 20 to 100, there are a ton of starting caliber players to be found. And again, that's where it is incumbent upon every team, but especially this one with where they are right now, to make good of those picks. And so, Howie Roseman, the Eagles general manager, said the other day, if you have 8 picks and you hit on 3 starters, you feel really, really good about it. And I don't think the Vikings are in a position where they can do much less than that and continue to drive this thing where they want to drive it.
Let's play the 0-10 game. 0, no chance, obviously. 10, a deadlock certainty. Will Grenard be traded by the Vikings before the start of the 2026 season?
I would say 4.
4. Okay. Because?
From the outset of this with Jonathan Grenard, I don't believe that the Vikings have ever necessarily shopped him. The hurdle the entire time has been the contract. And for the Vikings to move an elite caliber player, which Jonathan Grenard is, you're going to want a real premium return. And it is I do think teams like the Philadelphia Eagles have been and are interested, but will they, reach that premium return? Howie Roseman doesn't strike me as the type of guy who's really going to budge off of his kind of initial offers. And so if something doesn't happen via the draft, I think you get to the point where you reach the summer and the fall, and the Vikings, at that point will have a better understanding of their finances. And I mean, they value the player and probably would do everything they can to make him feel that. So that's where I'm at with that situation.
I'll ask you as we wrap things up with Alec Lewis, kind enough to join us. Great stuff from Alec again today via The Athletic, a nice deep dive into sort of this team's recent draft history and the degree to which it has forced them to go to free agency way more than you should want to go. Is it fair to say that, based on what you believe and know, that Kyler Murray will have to basically be awful in training camp to not be the starter when the regular season begins?
Yes. I mean, I just can't. I know the Vikings are only paying him the minimum, and I know that they, a lot of people have talked about this as a competition, and I do get the purpose of it. You would hope that would motivate and produce the most, high level commitment from every party involved. But I just can't fathom the idea that a guy who has made 87 starts, has been to 2 Pro Bowls, when he's healthy, has been really dynamic, would take a backseat to a player who was very up and down and has only made 10 starts, specifically when you're coming off of a disappointing season, and inspiring faith for everybody is going to be Kevin O'Connell's charge. And that includes everybody from a fan base perspective, ownership perspective, locker room perspective. So that's where I'm at with it, even though I understand the potential value of framing it the way they have.
Will you be devastated if the Vikings do not get the bid to host the 2028 National Football League draft?
I don't know if I'll be devastated.
No.
I'm sure I would have a good time with it being here, and we get to do some fun stuff.
Yeah.
And KFAN would probably have some incredible setup, I would imagine.
I hope.
But I don't know if it's gonna ruin my summer here. I doubt it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm actually trying to discourage us selling our souls to have it done, but I think I'm in the minority on this one. I don't think I'm going to be very, very successful.
I mean, look, I'm not going to be if people want to have a good time outside US Bank Stadium, I mean, it's what it is. I'm not going to push that far back on it, but I
understand. Well, you're almost there. It's got to feel good to finally get to close to the opportunity to instead of speculate, to report on what is actually taking place, the draft picks that have been selected. I'm sure you're as ready for that as anybody, and of course that all starts tomorrow night. Thanks for the help as always.
Of course, I'm looking forward to it. It should be pretty fun. I mean, it's a big opportunity for them.
No question.
And squander this one, and 3 years from now we're going to be talking about it. So thanks, Dan.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Alec.
it.
Alec Lewis from The Athletic, kind enough to join us on this beautiful Wednesday. By the way, no Kessler today. He's just taking a week off. I think he may even be traveling. He's got some other duties, but he should be back with us, I'm assuming, as soon as next week. Let's make this the bottom of the hour break. We've got a lot of texts to process after really back-to-back football-related, pro football draft-related guests. First, of course, Marty Wexler the third, and then Alec Lewis, I think, the first. Stay tuned.
Playoff time calls for Carboni's Pizza game day fuel since 1954, and you can fuel your Game 3 playoff party this Thursday by ordering at carbonispizza.com.
We were chatting earlier about the injury, the scary fall by your guy Wemby in the Spurs playoff game 2 of their series, first-round series with Portland yesterday, and he is in concussion protocol. He did not come back in that game, and Portland stole it late to tie the series at a game apiece. The projections have been on him, just shut down the league, right? Because once he figures it out, gains a little bit of strength and maturity, there's just nobody's going to be able to stop him. What struck me last night, I was reminded of again last night, there's something in my head that says the equalizer on Wemby might be Wemby's body itself.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like, you just look at him and you go, he's going to crack in half. I mean, what? Something is going to happen. And frankly, he's already had some significant issues with his body.
Right.
It just doesn't even seem possible. And so I'm wondering if the story going forward with him, when we look back on it somewhere down the road, is not necessarily that he got stopped all that much by other teams, but that his body stopped him from maybe becoming year in and year out quite as dominant a player as he's certainly capable of being on the basis of all the skill he has in his, what is he, 7'4", 7'5", 7'6", 7'7", whatever it is.
Right about there.
I don't even know what it is. He looks so gangly going down on the ground when he got fouled on that play, right?
Yeah.
And you go,
He kinda
tripped. It can't be made to be that durable of a body. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't seem to fit.
Well, we always hear about big men and their feet. That's always been a thing, right? Because he's just a big dude.
Correct.
And he moves so well. He probably moves better and more than he's supposed to move at that height.
Yeah.
But he's also had just kind of the interesting health things with the blood clots that we talked about earlier in the week.
Yeah.
So that would be the one. And that might be why they have limited him a little bit. Mm-hmm. We joked about just playing 29 minutes a game this season. Some of that is because they've been really good. They haven't needed him all those times. But some of it might be a different kind of load management. I don't know.
Somebody, when we were praising, giving the seal of approval to LeBron for a terrific performance in the Lakers' victory over Houston, somebody brought up, well, wait a minute, you're forgetting about Kareem at age 41, and he did play at 41. That was, I think, his final season. And I think for the year he averaged 10 and 4. He did have games where he was capable of getting to 20 points or more. But by that point, I mean, obviously Kareem was unusual, how long he was able to extend his career at a time where he didn't feel like he had all the advantages that athletes do, certainly of LeBron's, era and age. But I'm not sure that at that age, Kareem was regularly doing what LeBron continues to do. I just don't see it. And that's no rip on Kareem. I mean, Kareem, I've said, I continue to believe might be actually underrated. When all these discussions tend to go, who's the best player ever, Michael or LeBron, they leave out several players, and Kareem's one of them, especially if you want to factor in what he did at every level. Going all the way back to high school, college, and pros, too. Combination of pretty much all of those. This is we have the calendar of calamity, but then we also have some good stuff that happens on a given day, on this day. And yes. Dan Minnesota, I guess this would be, looking back on it, the one calamitous item that he has on this date. I was stunned with the depth of how many historic things happen on this day. The negative one might be this one. The University of Minnesota on this date in 1988 fired Luther Darville for misappropriation of $200,000 in university funds to athletes. Darville said he was acting under the orders of University VP Frank Wilderson on that occasion. And the muse from Minnesota is what we get a lot of when this story comes up, and certainly even when the Clem scandal comes up. I wonder if this event even becomes an issue in today's NIL world. If you diverted funds for personal use, yes, but giving money to student athletes would be considered normal today. Well, that's true. But that was, dare I try the math? What year did I say? 1988? 12, 26,
38.
Almost 40 years ago.
Yep.
I hate that discussion because we get it all the time for people who want to excuse what Clem did. It's the old, look what we're doing now, man. Why would we even worry about what took place then? What's the big deal? Don't we all feel silly with how much of a big deal we made out of it? No, not in the least. It is literally a different era. And unless you accept the premise that everybody was doing what the Gophers were doing, then it's irrelevant how silly that looks now. That was a different time in college sports. And I'm going to be naive enough to think I believe there are actually some coaches who attempted, largely at least, to pay attention to some of those rules. And they didn't try to enhance their possibilities and their opportunity by cheating on a level as spectacular as Clem and Associates did then. I don't understand what that accomplishes. If you want to say, well, the whole system all along has been fraudulent because of the amount of, even then, the amount of money that was being made by colleges and the unfairness of not finding a way, you can't buy, you can't take one of your players to Arby's for a beef and cheddar sandwich. Okay. Yeah. Does that seem ludicrous? It does, but it's being used by too many Clem apologists to apologize, to sort of accommodate and excuse what took place then, because look what we're doing now. It's unbelievable. Almost suggesting that Clem was ahead of his time. Now, also, in Clem's case, the issue wasn't so much paying. It was helping players stay eligible.
Yeah.
Cheating on tests.
Doing their homework.
And
their papers.
I don't know. You and I have talked about this. Maybe nobody does pay attention anymore to whether kids go to class for the same reason that we're not even sure a lot of them are going to class, or they're already graduated and they got 3 more years of eligibility because that's the way we're doing it these days. But to try to excuse behavior on the basis of what has come after, it's nice. It's convenient if you want to alibi your way out of it. But I just don't think one thing has anything to do with the other. Of course, in the case of NIL, what Darville did seems ridiculous, whether he was the fall guy or not. In fact, I think the late, great Ron Rosenbaum represented Luther Darville for a while, if I'm not mistaken, back in the day.
That would track.
But I don't know. I don't know what you make of that. I just don't. It just doesn't work for me. Sorry. It just doesn't. The only way it works, as I said, is if you believe everybody was cheating at the same level back then. And maybe you do. And maybe you say, well, that's why we just happened to get caught and others didn't. Otherwise, as silly as some of the rules may look now, looking back, my guess is there were some coaches who attempted largely to abide by them because those were the rules. That they may have thought they were stupid too. So I don't know I don't know how it gets us ahead, other than, as I said, if what you really want to do is move on and say that was a long time ago and life's too short and let's bring Clem back and we can have that discussion, that argument. I don't know what the right deal is, but I do know that you're embroidering the truth if you pretend that the whole thing was trumped up and fraudulent on the basis of the direction since then that college sports have gone. I mean, it has nothing to do with it to me, anyway.
The rules were the rules. They were the rules. I'm more on your side on that, but it is going to be interesting, just by happenstance, speaking of anniversaries.
Yeah.
We're coming up on the 30-year anniversary of 1997.
You're right.
With a current head coach at the University of Minnesota who worked with him and loves him. Absolutely. Still talks a lot. And I think is definitely on the side of let's let bygones be bygones. Yes. We got to have some type of conversation about this at some point. So it'll be an interesting thing to see how everybody responds to that. Most notably, the school. Because I think the school is still in the, we can't do anything about it. We can't even mention it. He who not be named, those teams not be named. So we'll see what they end up doing.
By the way, are there rules? Let's say that the University of Minnesota decides we're moving on. Enough time has gone by. We're not going to apologize for it. I mean, we've already done that a bunch, and we found the banner.
Yeah.
So, what are there rules that say even if you found the banner, that still preclude you as, let's say, part of this reunion, part of this celebration, that this is time, it's time, enough time has gone by, and there's been enough angst, and life's too short? Are there rules that would preclude the U from putting the banner inside Williams Arena?
It's something I don't know. If something is technically vacated, if you can actually commemorate it. I don't know, because it's your building. You should be able to do whatever you want.
Yeah, I don't know if the NCAA has any authority on anything at this point.
There's
frankly.
that, too.
Yeah. Let's come back, get caught up, and there's several on this day items that aren't quite as calamitous, which we will discuss, and then prepare for Russo Radio from the arena formerly known as the X.
Not quite yet. He's going to do it, and then he's going to go to the arena, because it's a late puck drop.
Oh, good point.
That's why it's at 5. I want to be accurate.
So Russo will be with us either way. It's just where he will be at the moment he chats with us at 5:02.
One night, one stage, one epic band, My Chemical Romance at Target Field, August 24th. Grab your tickets before they're gone. All the details are at KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
On this date, man, a lot of pretty interesting stuff that Dan Minnesota has brought to our attention. On this date in 2003, one of the greatest moments in Minnesota Wild history.
Saw that.
They stun the Colorado Avalanche, in overtime of game number 7. I think that was a conference or a division quarterfinal series. That got us, I think we beat Vancouver next round, and then that got us to the conference finals
against
where
Jiggy.
they cheated, where the goaltender cheated.
Per usual.
And about as memorable a series and about as memorable a finish as one could imagine. And it felt, again, that's 2003, boys and girls. So I'm sure back then we were thinking, well, this is easy.
Yeah.
This isn't that difficult to get to the conference finals. The team had barely existed. Jacques Lemaire, of course, was the coach. And little did we know how long it would take us to even to think about getting back as far as that. And we're still not even close to being there.
We've never been back.
Never been back. That's exactly correct.
I loved Wes Walls the other day talking about
Jacques.
Yeah. Said they can't play like this forever, guys. They can't play like this forever.
On this date, in 1987, the NBA awards Minnesota its very own basketball expansion franchise. And
the stories a stadium could tell.
The front page of the sports section there, let me look at the who wrote the main NBA story. It was Dennis Bracken. My column, about 4 paragraphs of my column got in there before the jump. I think the headline, here are 10 things to like about the NBA coming to town. And I only read the first one was Michael, even then. The second one just started with the hard bodies. There is no blubber in the National Basketball Association.
Interesting.
Which I thought was interesting. But you know what else is sneaky? In that same sports cover that celebrated the Minneapolis receiving an NBA franchise, here's your headline at the top of the page. Stars to announce Brooks' hiring today.
Oh, wow.
As in Herb Brooks.
Yeah.
Sid Hartman's to go to double byline. North Stars will name Herb Brooks their coach at a presser this afternoon at Met Center. Sources said Wednesday. 2-year contract filled with incentive clauses. Deal agreed upon during a 3-hour meeting attended by Brooks, Lou Nanne, and team co-owner Gordon Gund yesterday afternoon in New York. I think I remember maybe writing the next day, maybe off the presser. The question I had was, how complicated is it when you hire one of your best friends to run the team? I'm talking about Louis hiring Herbie Brooks. So it wasn't me ripping the decision so much as just musing out loud, how tough might that be? And eventually I think it got pretty tough.
Yeah. Because he had to fire him, right?
Well, I don't.
Or he had to.
My recollection is last time we talked about this with Louis, I don't think he was the one who fired him for some reason. But we'll double check that story with him maybe next time we have him.
This was 87
on. He was hired in 87. Yes.
I'm going to try to find what you wrote.
So
on the fly here.
And I think it was like within the next couple of days that question of it sounds so good in theory. I mean, go back to McHale and Flip.
That's the example I was going to use.
It was, and look, the fact that it ended as badly as it did doesn't necessarily mean you don't do it, because they had a lot of interesting years together. And frankly, I think they were on the path. I really do. When they drafted Garnett and then they made the draft day move to add Steph Marbury, I thought there was reason to believe they were on the path. They had figured the thing out, and they're going to live happily ever after, at least for a long time. So the fact that it went bad eventually, maybe it would have gone bad regardless of the relationship. It felt harsher simply because that relationship indeed existed, for sure. And also, on top of all these on this date, here's another on this date. Let me find it. Let me scroll to it. On this date in 1998, the WNBA grants Minnesota another expansion franchise. This case, of course, the team that would eventually be called the Minnesota Lynx. I don't think they had a nickname when that announcement was made. The Timberwolves name had already been established by the time it became official on the men's side. But on the women's side, I don't think we knew it was the Lynx. But on that same day, Minnesota got a professional women's basketball franchise as well. Kind of interesting.
The lovers think they are so much in love and they are so euphoric, and no mountain seems too tall to climb.
Yeah, that's it.
Problems? There are no problems, dear. Only solutions. Love will find a way. That's the not opening paragraph.
I wonder if Louis was quoted in it. I think I'm pretty sure I did talk to Louis. I don't know.
He looks great in the picture here, just smiling Luigi with Herb.
Why wouldn't he?
Well, he always looks good. He's Louis.
He still looks good. That's the amazing part about it, for sure.
Getting my walks in.
All right, so no doubt you're off the hook on Top 5 at 5 is what you tell me, because we got Russo Radio not quite at the arena formerly known as the X, because it's another late start tonight for your favorite hockey team. Do we have some lineup changes to discuss? We definitely have some injury updates to get to. And whatever else is on Russo Radio's mind. If you have questions for him, the Bradshaw and Bryan KFAN text line is wide open at 64686. Let's talk some puck and preview game number 3 in this best-of-7 series, knotted at a game apiece. The Wild coming home to see if they can get some kind of an advantage, and perhaps even by the time they leave here, stranglehold on this series. Can we dream about it? Going back to Dallas, up 3-1, a 2-game series lead for the first time in Minnesota Wild history? We'll find out.